Good morning, YouTube, and welcome to What the Papers Say with me, White Van Man, Deke Jackson. Yes, I've decided to rebrand myself and get in on the cultural phenomena that is defining political opinion by segments of society that have easy and cliched titles. A bit like Soccer Mom and, oh, I don't know, Scum, stuff like that. So, today's paper is the Times, Scottish edition, because they think people in Scotland only want to know about the bowling competition in Inverkeithing. So, price of loaf to rise amid warnings of the worst harvest for decades. Shoppers face paying more for a loaf of bread amid predictions of the worst wheat harvest for 40 years. I did mention this yesterday, and I would just like to say, in relation to Greta Thunberg's concerns about the polar bear and Black Lives Matter's concerns about the welfare and equality available to people who'd like to go to the mall in America, fuck you. Jason Honeyman, good morning. Bread price matters. Bugs Bunny, yo. Black Lives Matter or bread price matters. I reckon when the price of bread is $10 a loaf, suddenly Black Lives won't matter so much. I reckon when the price of bread is $10 a loaf, or there's none at all, no matter how much money you've got, the polar bears will be a distant concern of yours on this planet. So, polar bears can fuck off and die when you're paying $10 for a loaf of bread. You'll be much more concerned about eating yourself. And this headline, that's it. There's no continued on page 43, which is interesting because usually there's a little more explanation of that. The wheat harvest in Britain is down because of unseasonable weather, freak weather, call it what you will. But actually, that's not the only reason that the price is going to go up, because various countries, including Russia, have banned the export of wheat because they also had poor harvests and they're keeping it for their own people. So no more cheap imports either. Speaking of the cost of cheese or bread, independent Scotland, this is the headline. Independent Scots would face a decade of austerity, and independent Scotland would face more than a decade of deep spending cuts, a leading economist has said in an analysis of Scottish government figures. Well, I should like to amend that headline to read, Scots already had a decade of austerity. So, you know, how will we know the difference? Not that I'm promoting independence. Foolproof Man, good morning. I'm not promoting independence per se, but if you're poor and you remain poor, what's the difference? You know, whether you're independent or not. Poor and part of the union, poor and independent, you're still poor. So, you know. Now, there's a picture here, which I'm going to show you because the story here later on is just awesome. Check this out. This is a 17-year-old white vigilante who bussed himself in to the protests, riots, lootings in Wisconsin to shoot people, to play Call of Dummy. I mean, Call of Dummy, yeah. Those are my liner notes, Call of Dummy. What the fuck these people were thinking, I don't know. But I could hazard a guess. I think it goes something like, kill those niggers, if you ask me what they were thinking. Or, Mom, can I take my AR-15 out to play? Can I? President Trump is sending the National Guard in. That's sure to quell the protest. And really, black socks with your trainers. You know what? What Boris needs is a nice nylon shell suit, like so many of the fit people I see around me. You know, those people who look like they're on the way to an athletics meeting, but actually they're carrying a bottle of Buckfast or a can of Carlsberg Super Strength Lager. Honestly, what is it with people who look like they're dressed for the gym and the last exercise they had was skinning up? What is young people's obsession with looking like they're about to do some sport, but behaving like they're on the fast train to Bumsville? Blah, blah, blah. A lot of this is Scottish news, which is dull a lot of the time. Ex number 10 aide tells of fears that Trump is out to lunch. Who cares? It's always something, to quote Trump. It's like people are lining up to say something that they overheard or Trump said to them. What Trump is and isn't is surely well known to everybody. Well, Maguire, the England football star Harry Maguire, has won his appeal for a new trial. And his defence, ironically, his defence team simply lodged an appeal with the Greek courts. The judge overthrew his conviction. He is now innocent until proven guilty. He's not subject to any international travel restrictions, so he can play for England again. And he's claimed he is the victim and that his sister was injected with a date rape drug by Albanians. But what's really fun and interesting is that he shared his happiness at winning his appeal on social media by posting a quote from Buddha that reads, "Three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth." Well, Mr. Maguire, I should point you to 9/11 for a refutation of that quote. More news about the Scottish economy. 15 billion deficit will only get bigger as we continue to pump money into trying to save businesses because we're some sort of communist, socialist paradise. When did I miss the vote that said, oh, if your business is struggling, the taxpayers of Scotland will help you out with billions of pounds? Did I miss that? Because, I don't qualify for any £1 billion relief. My business is struggling. Where's my bailout? Third of young people may be jobless once furlough scheme ends. Why don't we just give them loads of money and they can do nothing for the rest of their life because some Scottish taxpayers agree to pay the interest on printing some more money? I don't require hand relief. Yes, I should say so. Spreadsheet error blamed for hospital delay. The Royal Hospital for Children, built by PPI, in Edinburgh, still hasn't opened after it turned out that they got the plans for the ventilation wrong because of a typo in the plans. Really? Is anybody buying that shit? Really? I don't buy that shit. I like accountability and transparency. And even if it is a typo, surely for the cost of £150 million we could sack somebody. Surely we could sack somebody if it cost us 150 million. If their fuck up cost 150 million pounds. Once upon a time, a technician who was servicing the cockpit of a jumbo spilled his coffee over the cockpit, and it cost $5 million to refit the cockpit of the jumbo. He was sacked. Yeah, of course, you fucked up. We sacked you. How about some of that in government? Wikipedia boy butchers Scots language with years of error. Quantitative easing. Yeah. I'll leave it. Thanks. No quantitative easing for me. And no lube either. Over a decade, from the age of 12, this boy he's edited the Scots language Wikipedia page, 27,000 pages, 100,000 edits. Cultural vandalism on an unprecedented scale. The boy does not speak Scots beyond some self-taught phrases, but thought he was helping. And some of his edits included the definition of a village, which reads, "A village is a clustered human settlement or community larger than a hamlet, but smaller than a town." Really? That is cultural vandalism. Don't believe what you read on the internet. Like Buddha says, don't believe what you read on the internet unless it checks out with a textbook from, somewhere else. Although I believe that Wikipedia, as far as, the existence of the periodic table and, how many simple facts, but if you're looking to find out who slept with Paris Hilton, don't trust Wikipedia. And I should like to declare that I have actually used the internet to try and resolve a mystery about the Scottish language for myself. And I know there's some Scottish people watching this because you've said so. So when I were a young boy, we used to go coofling, the act of jumping over the burn. And yet when I've looked in Scotch dictionaries, I couldn't find the word. So I wonder if it's a Fife vernacular. DJ Beto, just in time, DJ Beto, because did you ever coofle? Are you familiar with coofling, the act of jumping over a burn? Is that just a Fife thing, or did people coofle in Lothian or Strathclyde? Answers on a postcard, please. I'd like to know. Biggest driving test for electric scooters. This is, they've made electric scooters legal, which is surprising because they're really dangerous. But also they're claiming that they're good for the environment, which is surprising because most of the electricity in this country is produced by burning fossil fuels, gas. Most of our electricity is produced by burning gas. So an electric scooter charged at home by burning gas is not environmental, but what it is insurance against being sued for dirty air in your urban environment, which is what's coming. In the same way that once it was known that smoking tobacco caused people to be ill, people at work could sue you if you allowed tobacco smoke to pervade your working environment. Now it has become known, and it is the case, that the exhaust fumes from burning fossil fuels, petrol, diesel, are poisonous. They're bad for you and have caused the epidemic of asthma, the illnesses of Parkinson's, dementias, strokes and heart disease are all related or exacerbated by them. So I think we're looking at a world where councils become liable to litigation if the air quality is poor by you, and so they would rather have you drive a gas-powered electric vehicle, if you know what I mean, than an actual fossil fuel. More on what not to believe on the internet. Baseless climate warnings wiped from Extinction Rebellion film. Apocalyptic claims about climate change have been deleted from an Extinction Rebellion film narrated by Keira Knightley after the producer admitted having insufficient evidence. And now this is a story, if you like, close to my heart, because I do believe we have fucked the climate. In fact, for me it's a settled fact. Does that mean we should worry about the polar bears? No. Does that mean we should worry about sea levels rising? No. What are their claims? If we don't do anything about climate change and we end up with heat waves, oh, that's a refutal. We must not cry wolf. Stephen Harrison, a professor of climate and environmental change at the University of Exeter, says he knew of no credible scientist who says that human extinction was plausible. Well, that's funny because things go extinct all the time. Good morning, sleepy shoegazer. The average lifespan of a species on Earth being 4 million years. So regardless of climate change, extinction is definitely possible and, happens all the time. Whether it could happen to humans or not, we'll leave the bookies to figure out. It's a bit like crying wolf. If you keep telling people to panic, after a while they get fed up and don't panic. if we don't do anything about climate change and we end up with heat waves of 50 degrees C, we will see hundreds of thousands of people dying every year because of it. But we have 8 billion. Well, thank you, Professor. Thank you. We do have 8 billion, so we can afford to lose a few. I'm glad you agree. We can definitely afford to lose a few. Let me know when I have to breed with my sister before we get too excited. 5G mast safety row. Councils in England are to distribute a leaflet telling people how safe 5G is. Can't affect, introduction could affect people's health. These claims are completely unfounded and should not be used as a basis to block or delay 5G rollout. Now, regardless of the effect of 5G on your health, which, I'm not a proponent of, it's radio waves, like many other radio waves, which you're surrounded by. I should say it's your privacy you have to worry about, because 5G technology, part of the 5G technology is to have the connected world and an ability to track and monitor everything everywhere. So here we go. First death recorded for 6 weeks. Finally somebody died in Scotland from coronavirus. Praise the Lord. We have a death. Somebody died in Scotland with coronavirus, not from it, with it. And that's the first death in 6 weeks. So surely now we need an even harsher clampdown on our rights and liberties because somebody has died with it. Well, there are 2 deaths actually. 2 people have died from it. They were in care homes. Probably somebody's wheezing grandma. 2 people were recorded yesterday as having died after diagnosis. Now in Britain, that means if you're diagnosed or you have a positive test, if you die of anything within 28 days, you're part of the coronavirus figures. 28 days. So don't believe a word of it. BBC's Jamaican comedy sketch upsets home audience. BBC Comedy is at the centre of a race row after complaints about sexually inappropriate sketch. The controversy's been sparked by a scene from a sketch show imagining a Jamaican version of Countdown, the Channel 4 tea time game show. Oh, in the clip, a male contestant leers at the show's answer to Carol Vorderman before the host mimes having sex with her over a desk. Another contestant forgets to come up with an answer because he's high on marijuana. And in another part of the sketch, the silhouette of a man with a large penis, referencing a popular stereotype of black masculinity, is shown. Now, this sketch show is made by black, African, and largely Jamaican people. So, what's the problem? Why can't people laugh at themselves, or indeed at other people? I like to laugh at people all the time. And if we can't laugh at people, what are we going to laugh at? Trees, bushes? What are we going to laugh at? Lampposts? People are funny. People are interesting. People are stupid. People are funny. Let's laugh at them. And, the Jamaican High Commissioner, the show has an established brand of humour which is in line with audience expectations. Good. Auschwitz survivors film joy. A Holocaust survivor has spoken of her joy at viewing for the first time footage of her taking a train to freedom in Switzerland. Came across footage held by the US Holocaust Memorial Museum showing the journey. The family recognized smiling into the camera. All right. Lily Ebert, 96, is not a survivor of Auschwitz. her train passed through Auschwitz while she was being taken to a munitions factory. And since we're on the subject of the Holocaust and Jewish survivors and that whole, Pandora's box of cultural and political and historical references, I spent quite a lot of time researching the Holocaust, and I'd like to share with you the things I found out. I really wanted to believe that 6 million Jews didn't die, but they did. They did. However, 4 million of... I'm back. 4 million Jews were simply bombed by the Luftwaffe, or German artillery, as the army invaded Poland, Czechoslovakia, the Ukraine, and so on. So that is to say that 4 million of the dead Jews were killed in combat as civilians being shelled or, machine gunned. The other 2 million were worked to death. The Germans did not just waste their human capital by rounding up Jews and exterminating. They worked them to death. See the munitions factory this woman was on her way to. I am not diminishing the number of deaths or the personal tragedy of anybody who was killed by Germans. The communists, the gays, the disabled, and so on. The German army and the German hierarchy of that time did a lot of bad things, but what they didn't do was round people up and systematically kill them without first working them to death for the benefit of the war machine. And of course, any student of history will know that many, many millions of people died as a result of British slavery, Roman Empire, and so on. So there's nothing special, I should like to point out to Jews. There is nothing special about your suffering. Humans have suffered lots of things. Lots of humans have suffered the same shit you suffered. Your suffering's just not special. It's suffering along with much other human suffering. Just like Black Lives Matter. Police shoots black man is police shoots man. Lives matter is lives matter. Quatermass was right. We may be Martian. A colony of bacteria the size of a grain of sand can survive for years floating in space, raising the possibility that life on Earth originated on Mars. Well, why limit ourselves to Mars? I don't understand. Why is Mars the contender there? Why couldn't it come from the Delta Quadrant, or Betelgeuse, or Alpha Centauri? Why couldn't it come from anywhere? The seed of life might have come from Mars, so in fact we are all Martians. And Professor Quatermass of the sci-fi TV show was right. Or it could have come from another place. Betelgeuse is due to go supernova soon. That'll be good. A lesson on how to end the culture wars. This is a piece by David Aranovich about how all the stuff in the British Museum that the British Empire stole, plundered, those are other words you could use, should stay there. Okay, caught in a bind as the culture wars rage around us. On the one hand, the forces of fashionable and youthful morality who believe the British museums are not valuable in themselves and the stuff in them should be returned and the collections broken up. Some of this seems to originate in antipathy born out of childhood wet weekends dragged around museums. Personally, I don't think that's an argument that will survive an encounter. Then there are those who insist no change is possible, no reconsideration permissible. Any admission of past national sins is capitulation to woke political correctness and the besmirching of a glorious past. Okay, so broadly speaking, he thinks things should just remain where they are. But as David Aranovich is Jewish, it must be a bit of a theme for me today. I would like to ask him, how about all the stuff plundered by the Germans? during the war. Does he think that should stay in the hands of the Germans who plundered it? No, he doesn't. It should go back. We are within not living memory, we are within a cultural memory of knowing that we went to these countries and plundered their stuff, and so it should go back. It's not ours. The cultural heritage of the people of Egypt or Jamaica or Peru is theirs and should be returned to them. All right, now here is the militia vigilante story about the protests in America. This is great stuff. I mean, I don't mean I like it. I mean, it's great, as in it's really big, people. Armed conflict on the streets of America. A kind of quasi-virtual civil war. Which is only going to get worse, if you ask me. So, there are a few things about this. I mean, the pictures are incredible. Here's a guy running down the road, running and gunning. Those of you familiar with Call of Duty, running and gunning is where you try to have speed as your ally and you run through the map, shooting what you come across as quickly as possible. There's a guy here with a red Make America Great baseball cap on. I think that's what it is. It's hard to see the text. This guy here with the baseball cap on, just running and gunning down the street there. Just a running and a gunning. The other guy, he's fallen over with his AR-15, and so, things of interest about this. The rifleman stumbled, okay? Mobile phone, you can watch this for yourself. Mobile phone footage of this is available. It was an M4. Really? It was an M4, not an AR-15. Well, not my preference, you know. It's got a little bit too much kick at the end of the muzzle, but whatever. So, mobile phone footage of this incident is available, and you can watch the following, right? The man stumbles and falls to the ground. His pursuers close in. He opens fire from point-blank range. You can watch this, hitting at least 2 people. The crowd scatters. The police arrive in a convoy of armored vehicles. Cavalry to the rescue, yeah? The gunman, who has his hands in the air and his rifle slung around his shoulder, walks past them without being detained. Let's just go over that again, because it may seem slightly confusing at first. A man armed with a machine gun, automatic weapon, kills people on film at a protest, and when the army arrive, he walks through them and is not detained. He is later arrested 20 miles away in the neighboring state of Illinois. Like he got away scot-free. Yeah, semi-auto, although you can adjust that by filing your SEER, so, and I would if I had one. So, Kyle Rittenhouse, 17, goes to a protest, kills people, semi-auto, I think we've established. Although, as I say, he could have modified that, I would. And troops in the Falklands, by the way, British troops who were sent to the Falklands with the FAL, they filed their SEERs to get auto because, you know, in a firefight, you want all the help you can get. So, he walks away from the scene of the crime and nobody detains this armed man with his hands in the air. Right, great. What's at work there? Is that some kind of like instant otherness? Hey, here's a white guy with a gun like me. Just let him through. Come on, guy. You're on the wrong side of the battle lines. We're here with the white guys with the guns looking at these black people. But in fact, the protesters aren't exclusively black, and neither are the uniformed people from the army. So, you know, possibly a racist more there, possibly not. Meanwhile, right, in another bizarre story, Black Lives Matter protesters surrounded a woman at a restaurant who refused to raise her fist in support of them. A large crowd of mostly white protesters marched through a neighborhood near the White House chanting, "White silence is violence." You fucking muppets. Really? Yeah, defending himself from what? With a rifle. I mean, who goes out on the street with a rifle? Who goes from Illinois to Wisconsin to defend themselves? You know, if the people who were rioting were in Illinois, I'd buy the defense thing. Really? You're buying the defense thing? He's 17-year-old. He's been playing Call of Duty since he was 12. He's got a fucking gun in his cupboard, and he decides to go to a protest to defend himself 20 miles away. He needs to defend himself 20 miles away, just in case the riot gets out of hand and it grows to a large 20-mile conflagration. Really? Fuck off. Fucking defend himself. My fucking balls. Fuck. Nice try. Really, the guy's obviously a violent gun nut who went out to get his jollies off. And these white violence is silence protesters, they're fucking twats. White silence is not silence. No silence is violence, white or otherwise. Silence is silence. Violence is violence. And what these people did is outrageous. Protesters shouted in her face, "Are you Christian?" They surrounded her because she wouldn't raise her fist. And there's a picture here which I will attempt to show you. It's difficult, but let's see if you can just see that. All right. Oh, these people are scum. And it reminds me of once upon a time I was playing a charity gig for the African National Congress in support of the Free Nelson Mandela Brigade in Edinburgh in the assembly rooms. I was in a band and we were playing that gig, and during the warm-up there were other bands on. Me and a good friend of mine, Yo Freak, we were sitting in the back of the room having a beer watching the band, and the band started playing the African National Congress anthem, and a lot of people stood up and raised their fist in the Black Power African National Congress salute. And a guy came round to the table we were at. We were just sitting there having a beer and said, "Stand up!" And Freak and I both looked at each other like those two guys in Pulp Fiction. Fuck off! What would we stand up for? We're neither black, nor African, nor members of the African National Congress. It's not our anthem. Why would I stand up? So, the interesting thing here is the impunity with which both of these parties are being able to act, surrounding people and forcing them, or trying to force them to put their fist up in support of Black Lives Matter. And this other guy going out with a gun 20 miles from his home to protect himself. Honestly, scum are scum. There are no nice people with guns on the street. If you go out with a gun on the street, then you're not a nice person. You're looking for, you're planning perhaps to use that. I'm not talking about concealed carry here. If I had a gun, I would be carrying it concealed. If I got it out, I'd be planning to use it though. This is the difference, people. If you whip your gun out, you are surely no longer a nice person. You're planning to do something with it. Never carry a gun, a knife, or a credit card if you're not prepared to use it, in my opinion. Israel bombs Hezbollah in Lebanon. I was groped on stage. Dry summer disastrous for hedgehogs. They should come to Scotland. We're not having a dry summer. US armoured vehicles rammed by Russians. The $64 million question. How much further will the greenback fall? The fall in value of the American dollar, which has gone from, I believe, against the pound, 170 to 130, or 180 to 130, which is a big loss. I'm not sure how I benefit or lose out there, because a certain amount of my income still comes from Google ads on a documentary called The History of Humanity. And so if they're paying me in dollars and I get more pounds for that, I think that the worse it gets for the dollar, the better it gets for me, marginally speaking. Yeah, so like if it was $2 to a pound, yeah, if you were going to America, £1 bought you $2, that would be great. But if you were being paid in dollars and $2 was a pound, and then a dollar became a pound, that would be better. So I think I'm on the right side of the divide. What does Melania Trump want? That's a good question. I think a more interesting one is, what does she not want? Does she not want Donald anymore? Well, that would appear to be it. That's the crossword. Business, Huawei suffers defeat. Yeah, so that would appear to be it. That's what the papers say. So, thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. I know I'm gonna. See you next time. Cheers.